Welcome to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, baseball fans? Back at it with another New York Mets videos, and I plan on getting a lot more Mets videos up as the season approaches. I meant to have a video up yesterday on this, but I was very busy. As you saw, I had to do a video from the car about Odell Beckham. Also have a Giants video out later today talking about Bill Callahan and Scott Linehan, two guys that they're potentially bringing on to the coaching staff. They'll be interviewing Linehan, I believe, today for the offensive coordinator position, along with Callahan on the offensive line. But this video is about Carlos Beltran and the New York Mets. The New York Mets, of course, appointed the former Met player and Yankee player and various other teams to be the Mets manager this year. And, you know, I was excited. A young manager, a guy that was going to bring some energy and was always a smart guy. I pointed that out in my video. I always remember him with the Mets. He would always take that extra base, would do whatever that needed to be done to win baseball games. And apparently, he took it too far with the Houston Astros. Now, Major League Baseball said when that report came out about, obviously, the cheating allegations with the Astros, that none of the players would be disciplined. It would strictly be the coach, the general manager, people that may have been a member of the coaching staff, and then they suspended, I believe, both the GM and the manager, if I'm not mistaken, for a year from the Astros. But Beltran was the only player named in that report. A couple of days ago, the Red Sox fired manager Alex Cora due to his involvement, and then the Mets followed suit yesterday. And only the Mets could fall into this. Because this is no fault of the Mets. The Mets hired this guy on my birthday, actually. I remember November 12th, to be the new manager of the team shortly after the conclusion of the season. And, you know, there was no, we didn't know, and I think shortly after he was hired, we found out that he was involved in it. But the Mets did not take action. And in my opinion, the reason the Mets took action here was because they didn't want to take the backlash from the media, being that he was mentioned in the report, being that would travel with them the entire season. And to the Mets' defense, they didn't know that he was involved in any of this prior to hiring him as the Mets manager. So I can't really get on the Mets for that. Now, maybe the Mets waited too long. You could certainly argue that. Maybe they should have fired him a couple of weeks ago. And it seems awfully convenient that they did it after Cora was fired. And these reports came out. Apparently what happened was Brody and Beltran talked to one another and they decided to mutually part ways. And I'll get into the quotes from Carlos Beltran. I'm also going to talk about some of the potential managerial candidates that the New York Mets can bring on, due to the fact that they had to let go of Beltran. But let's jump into some of the quotes on this topic. First thing I actually wanted to pull up for you guys was what Carlos Beltran had to say when he left the New York Mets. Over my 20 years in the game, I have always taken pride in being a leader and doing things the right way. And in this situation, I failed. As a veteran player on the team, I should have recognized the severity of the issue and truly regret the actions that were taken. I am a man of faith and integrity, and what took place did not demonstrate those characteristics that are so very important to me and my family. I am very sorry. It's not who I am as a father, a husband, a teammate, and an educator. The Mets organization and I mutually agreed to part ways moving forward for the greater good with no further distractions. I hope that at some point in time I'll have the opportunity to return to this game that I so much love. Yeah, and obviously, that's what he has to say, and I guess it's the right thing to say. But I honestly don't think Beltran's ever going to get another managerial job. Maybe get something on a coaching staff of a team. Who knows? But baseball does not take cheating lightly. You see what they did with Pete Rose. Pete Rose didn't even cheat. He bet on the sport. And, they didn't want him anywhere near the game. And he's not in the Hall of Fame because of it. I also think this is probably going to hurt Carlos Beltran's Hall of Fame chances. I thought he was a sure thing. I'm not 100% sure of that anymore. Was a great switch hitter, a great 5-tool player, one of the better defensive center fielders during, his time in the pros. But not only do I think he's out as the manager, probably for good, not just with the Mets. I don't think he's ever going to get another managerial job. There's a good chance he might not make the Hall of Fame now because of this. And it's a shame because I like Carlos Beltran. He was a great player. And, but baseball does not take that lightly. Next thing we're going to pull up is this. This is a quote, I think, that came out in the report when Alex Cora was quoted as saying this, talking about Carlos Beltran when he got hired by the Yankees. I was joking with someone that the Yankees' biggest free agent acquisition was Carlos Beltran. He's talking about last year or the year before, whenever Beltran served, in the front office with the New York Yankees. Cora said before, winking, "I know how it works, He's helping a lot. They're paying attention to details, and we have to clean our details." So in that quote, he's kind of, hinting at the stealing of signs. That's the way that quote is meant to be read. I believe that's why it's in the report. And then he went later on to say, "It was eye-opening the last few days from top to bottom," Cora said. And I'm not saying devices and all that stuff. It's just stuff that the game will dictate and will scream at people and is right there throughout the evening. I was looking and I saw it, And right now they're a lot better than us. So we need to get better. That was in the report, I believe. And here's another quote. "Approximately 2 months into the 2017 season, a group of players, including Carlos Beltran, discussed that the team could improve on decoding opposing team signs and communicating the signs to the batter." And of course, if you're not well aware of this, the story is that players were using, obviously technology, electronic devices to pick up on signs, and then they relayed the messages to the batter by banging a wall or whatever it was, a banging noise, 2 if it was a curveball, 3 if it was a fastball, whatever it was. And that is what they got caught for cheating for over the course of a 3-year span, which led the Astros to a lot of success. And Beltran took part in that. And then I also wanted to pull up this for you guys. This is what Brodie Van Wagenen, the Mets general manager, had to say. "When we met with Carlos, we had to make an assessment of where do we go from here. In Carlos's thought process as well as ours, we both agreed it was going to be incredibly challenging and incredibly difficult to do the job in the way in which we intended and the way in which we could utilize the best of his abilities. Once that decision was made, we reached the conclusion that we're announcing today, of course, that both parties were parting ways." Pressed further on exactly what Beltran would be unable to do, Van Wagenen referred to Beltran's statement from earlier Thursday before elaborating a bit. "There were mistakes he made as a player. There were mistakes that he recognized as a leader as a player. In assessing all of that information, all of the events that have transpired, it was just clear to both sides that in order to execute the job the way in which it needed to be, that it was going to prove very challenging." And then I just wanted to pull up a list of the managers that are favored right now, according to MetsBlog.com, to potentially take the job. But yeah, in terms of the, before I even look over this, I think that Van Wagenen there, the real reason he got fired has nothing to do with the cheating, in my opinion. Otherwise, they would have fired him a month ago if they thought it was that big. The Mets knew they were going to take a huge media hit if they kept Carlos Beltran on. Carlos Beltran knew that he was going to have to deal with that. And, I think that they both realized that it was probably in the best interest of both parties not to have to deal with that. And as Mets fans, it's unfair that we have to deal with this. And it's just bad luck. Like I said, there was no way of knowing that when they hired him. But it's just a shame, and hopefully we find the right manager. And here is the list of the favorites. Eduardo Perez, I believe, was a finalist for the New York Mets. A lot of people thought Perez was going to get the job before Beltran did. Of course, he's famous for being up in the booth, very smart guy on ESPN, similar to what Aaron Boone did, now manager of the New York Yankees, and known to have a really good baseball mind. Hensley Mullins is the bench coach currently for the New York Mets. Was thought to be a really good bench coach, and a lot of Mets fans liked him when they brought him on. Luis Rojas is also a member of the New York Mets coaching staff. He's a quality control coach, is one of the favorites as well. Tim Bogar, a former New York Mets player, currently, I believe, on the Washington Nationals coaching staff and was a manager for a year. Terry Collins, of course, the former New York Mets manager. I don't expect him to get the job from everything I read. And then some other notable guys on there: Bruce Bochy, Buck Showalter, Dusty Baker. Those are guys with, obviously great success as managers. But I don't expect the Mets to bring any of those guys in, because the Mets from the start have shown that they don't believe in guys like that. I think they want a guy that they can control. They want a guy with not a lot of experience. Otherwise, they would have interviewed a guy like a Buck Showalter. We'll have to wait and see. I, of course, would not be against a guy like a Buck Showalter. Buck Showalter has had a lot of success throughout his career. He's never won a championship, but he's always gotten the most out of his teams. And, of course, did not do that well, though, when given an opportunity with the New York Yankees. But, yeah, I think the Mets moved on for Beltran for one simple reason, like I said. They didn't want to take the press hit. They knew they were going to have to. Beltran, like I said, I think would have made a good manager. But unfortunately, he cheated the game of baseball. And when you do that, you have to pay the penalty. Why he was the only player mentioned in the report, I couldn't tell you. Did he have more involvement than other players? Quite possibly. But, there's nothing more we could do about it. It's clearly obvious to me that the Mets did not fire him due to the fact that he stole signs. They fired him due to the fact that they knew they were going to take a big hit by the New York media and baseball in general if they didn't do so. So I think the Mets were left with no choice here, especially after the Red Sox moved on from Cora. And now they're going to have to go out there and find another manager in a year in which, I had huge hopes for the Mets, and I still do. They still have the talent. Pete Alonso has come out and said that he still thinks the team's going to do very well. And I don't see any reason why they won't. But a manager's a big part of that, and they better find the right guy to take this job. I would say Perez is probably the favorite at this point in time due to the fact that he was a finalist. Seems to be the type of guy they were looking at. But there's no way of knowing. We're just going to have to wait and see. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.